everyone. Welcome back to Organizing to Victories podcast. This is Lee Perry, and we're talking garage politics. On today's episode, we have a super special guest, probably the most special guest that we'll ever have on the podcast, my husband, Ernest Calderon. He's joining us today as a pop culture connoisseur and someone who does the political organizing behind the camera and behind the scenes, helping us to learn more of a perspective of someone not completely entrenched in politics. We talk about the intersectionality between Hollywood, grassroots organizing, and how Star Wars, Andor, and Zohran could actually teach the Democrats a thing or two. Joining us now is Ernest. So as you know, politics is personal. And what that means is today I am interviewing my husband,
Hello.
Ernesto Calderon.
Hi.
Hi, Ernesto.
How you doing?
Many people call him Ernest. Some people call him Ernie. I'm not allowed to call him Ernie, but
You're allowed. You're allowed to do whatever you want.
So I'm super excited to interview you for a few reasons. One, you're starting to get more politically involved, which I think we should talk through that process. Two, I think a lot of people don't really know me and they don't really know the people in my network who inspire me or bring me deeper into this work. And you're definitely one of those people. So I'd love to talk about that connection. But I really want to start with, what is your personal why? I feel like you are very politically aware. And you've had moments where you've gotten in and out of political organizing work. And right now I can feel from you every day that you're interested in getting more involved and more connected to this work. And so I'd really love to start with your personal story of when you were young and how you got into your first organizing work.
Well, with politics specifically, I volunteered for the Obama campaign, the re-election campaign in 2012. And that was the first time I really became activated into politics. I was 18, I want to say. That was around the time that I became a citizen of the US. I'm from Colombia. I was born in Colombia. And my parents went through the whole process, multi-year, decade-long process. And it coincided with me turning 18, the culmination of all of that. Mm-hmm. So I had to go through it on my own because I didn't automatically become a citizen as a minor dependent under them. So I wasn't able to vote in that election because it timed just afterwards of me gaining the right to vote. So I was already 18.
Okay.
But knowing that I was on the cusp of becoming a citizen and gaining my right to vote and just understanding the weight of that and seeing my parents go through the process and all the countless interviews and stuff. You have to pass these tests. It's very rigorous. And then, I would then had to go and do it myself shortly thereafter. I started to feel the weight of it, the gravity of what is politics? What is government? What are these systems? And, Obama, not a perfect president, but way better than what we have now. Mm-hmm. And him running for re-election, it just felt natural. It wasn't something that I was super fired up, ready to go about. I just saw it as it just felt normal. It felt organic to be okay, I'm going to dedicate my time to this. It seems like something I should do. A little phone banking, a little canvassing.
Was there any guilt there from being a migrant and then getting your citizenship? You felt like you had to be active in order to be a citizen, or was there what was the feeling there that?
It was more a sense of responsibility to participate because I was starting to understand the enormity of it, the privilege of it. I think people who are born in the US, they just take it as a given how this system works and how democracy works here. And a lot of people don't understand like how rare it is to have the system that we have, the system that's now being dismantled by the Trump administration. Like every day it's just getting worse. But in 2012, it felt like we were upholding something that should be upholded. And I didn't even think about it in that way. I guess I thought it more as just like, you know, it's cool that we have a Democrat in the Oval Office that is at least seemingly trying to help people. I know that it's not that simple and clear cut, but you felt responsible. You felt this natural need to like want to be a part of that. Also cute girls to hang out with.
Oh, I knew that was coming
at the canvassing office, at the field office. But yeah, I remember back when Obama first got elected, I was probably 13. Does that sound right? 2008, 14, something like that. And there was just so much energy. It was like a bomb went off in a good way. And so for the re-election, I just felt like I wanted to be a part of that. You know, I remember being very young, being very little, and thinking like, wow, that feeling of accomplishing something massive, historic. I would like to be a part of that. And so, yeah. And, you know, obviously he got reelected and we felt some kind of buy-in to that victory. And I think, you know, by the time 2016 rolled around, I guess in 14, I must have done a little something, just to kind of feel like I was continuing, but at that point I was just starting college and I don't think it
wasn't like on your radar. Saying your rights were being actively stripped from you, so you felt like you absolutely had to.
Right. I mean, I must have voted. I mean, who did we have in 14? Was that the governor's, Florida governor's election that Rick Scott won? But in 16, I mean, it was Bernie, you know? So that was huge, thinking that Bernie might be the nominee. But I was in Europe during all of that, so I was kind of witnessing it all from afar. Couldn't really get super invested, at least like physically, but you know, online I was very vocal and about my wishes for Bernie, and obviously it didn't work out. Trump got elected, Hillary lost, and shortly thereafter, that's when I met you. And I think that those steps of wanting to insert myself in politics to some extent, not really like going as far as to make it a core part of my identity or of my priorities, but at least like being aware and contributing to some extent, led me to want to join fleet farming and Ideas for Us. Like that same thinking of like, let me dedicate like some fraction of my time to a cause that is worthwhile, that is good.
So just for folks who might not know the full story, so I was the chief operations officer at Ideas for Us, which is a climate organization that does, you know, grassroots organizing around climate change and really hands-on solutions to meeting the climate crisis. So I was very active in that. And one of their programs is fleet farming, which does urban agriculture. And at the time, we had a lot of interns, and Ernest was the intern while I was the boss. So that dynamic was really fun. But
luckily it worked out.
You know, a lot of 8 years later, it worked out just fine. But a lot of young people were gravitating towards those hands-on solution-based, nonpartisan groups
during the Trump years.
Even before, leading up to the Trump years, I think a lot of people were gravitating towards that because it felt very solutions oriented, and I would say not really mutual aid, but maybe mutual aid to the aspect of like, we were addressing food deserts with urban agriculture programs and really trying to give people the tools to grow their own food. So anyway, there's a lore there for young people that are trying to find their way in college, want to get into activism, might not necessarily intersect with politics. I know At
Well,
that
I
time,
mean,
I
now
wasn't.
it's intersecting with a lot of right-wing circles. It's kind of swinging the other way now.
We'll get there, but I will say that, at that moment in our lives, I know that I wasn't particularly political. I did the same thing as you, like occasional canvassing events or making sure I know who like my local elected officials were when I have a local election. But I wasn't like knee deep like I am now. And in that moment of us meeting, I think I knew something was coming. Like I could feel a shift, and I can't still to this day put my thumb in on exactly what it was, but I knew that with climate change, things were going to be changing, and politics was just one of the symptoms of that ever changing, fast changing global shift that's happening because of climate change. And I remember meeting you and just saying, like, if you even want to try to talk to me, you need to be ready for
You're
whatever is coming.
signing up for something real, yeah.
And I just, and as a COO of like a climate organization, I was like traveling and seeing people and meeting people and understanding the full scope of like the consequences of what inaction is doing to our planet. And then 2020, everything changed, and I jumped in full, like head first into politics. But even then, you and I were like still dating. But I feel like at that point, it was getting even more serious. And I was like, something's coming, and I just need you to be ready to be on this ride. But you were never like, I'll be on this ride with you, but I'm not going to be head first too. Like, I need you to know that like I have boundaries. I have a parameter. I'll be in the background. I'll be helpful to you and your causes, but like I don't want to be head first. And I've always respected that because I feel sometimes insecure and absolutely insane for wanting to do this work as full hearted as I want to. Like, and sometimes, and this might be a conversation with a therapist, but I think like, am I trying to fill a gap or something? Or do I just have such crippling anxiety that I feel like I have to be this politically involved? Because if you're not a corrupt individual, you don't want to do politics. Like you want to be able to have your family and have your life and, have your hobbies. But the pressing fact that like climate change is hanging over everything that we do, and the unaffordability of just existing has become so crushing. And just the ability to like send your kid off to school and know that they're going to come home alive is all just getting harder and harder and harder to live and exist around. And I felt like that moment when you and I started dating and into starting to get more politically involved was that threshold when I can feel that shift happening in our generation and just globally.
Yeah. I mean, I look back at that time as a massive just fork in the road. I
Mhm.
just graduated college. I didn't really have a plan as to what I was going to do. I mean, my first sort of inkling was to try to work in the film and TV industry because it aligned with, my personal interests and the degree that I got in college. But I didn't really have like a concrete plan as to how I would succeed in that field. I wasn't really doing the work to try to like ensure a, a path to like actual success because it's so hard in that industry to guarantee success. And if you don't have a plan to ensure success, then you're kind of fucked. Can I curse?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you met me?
um so joining the work that you were doing, I saw it as a plan. I saw it as like filling that void of like not knowing what the hell I was going to do with my life post college, and latching on to a person and a group of people and an organization that felt like not only was it good work, but like that would be that my talents would be used in a cool, creative, productive way, and that I could help build it. And that's what we did.
Mhm.
And leading up to the pandemic and COVID hitting, it was a climb, right? And
Mhm.
I don't think I would have had that if I would have chosen to move out of Florida, move to New York, LA. I don't even know where I would have gone, honestly. I would have probably been very lost and wandering. And it could have been fun for a
I mean, you
while,
wanted
but
the
then
Spielberg launch. You wanted to just like sleep in your car and do the grind and be a light boy and fetch cafe like lattes and
probably
just
a lot of that. Yeah, probably a lot of that. But also I think that I mean, I honestly only know that world from very afar, just from watching movies and reading about it and listening to podcasts and interviews and stuff. I haven't really been in it. I've never
Mhm.
been to LA, but from what I know about it is that once you're in it, it's not glamorous and it's not like this romanticized version that we're all told it
Mhm.
is. It's very grueling and demanding and punishing, until you can reach that level of success and
And it's
wealth.
still demanding and still
And
crippling.
then it becomes, yeah, and then it becomes something else entirely. So in many ways I feel like I evaded a lot of hardship by not pursuing that, because I think that a lot of people just get so burned out if you go down that road and it's not what you expect it to be, and things don't work out the way you want it to be. So ultimately, like, I'm really happy that I ended up not doing that, because staying here and building a life here with you is way better than anything I could have hoped to achieve.
I paid him to say that. Well,
but to tie back to the work here is like, now we've been together for like 8 years. We got married 2 years ago, and we find so many ways to do stuff like to build this community, political community, in our own way. um and I'm able to help you so much. I help produce this podcast.
mhm.
um I help cut videos for all your Safe Split Oak and all those causes. And I feel like, like you said, there's this boundary, there's this line, but I am always available to uh contribute to all these things. And I never use that line or that boundary as a way to like opt out.
Mhm.
So, sometimes I do, but I feel like in the important ways, I usually never opt out.
Well, everybody can contribute to a movement. Like we were just having a potluck for the environmental caucus, and someone said, if I were to get more active and go to a protest and get, arrested, I could lose my CPA license or I could lose my teaching certificate. And so some people can't always be the face of a movement, but they can help with the mutual aid, the video editing, the, background fundraising
Find
support.
what you're good at and
Exactly.
do that instead of doing nothing.
Exactly. And so, like, to go back, because I think this is super intersectional to a lot of what we're going to talk about the more you come on the podcast and the more that fork in the road that you're talking about, I really feel like it was a fork in the road on so many levels, on so many different things. Like, obviously politically, because Trump was sucking all the airwaves and creating everything into a culture war, and people had just like had enough. But also, I think the corporate exploitation was becoming so prominent in like corporate greed, just like helping to contribute to like exponential inflation, and people using the pandemic as a way to increase prices astronomically. I mean, the cost of housing over the course of COVID skyrocketed across like all these, different types of housing. But we found later that it was all like these corporate landlords conspiring together illegally to like price gouge. And I think that fork in the road really informs a lot. And I feel like a part of this podcast is trying to find everybody's personal why while also figuring out what political thing triggered it. And like with you wanting to travel to like Hollywood and get your foot in the door, hearing someone like Steven Spielberg say that that was his start is a huge reflection to how like our grandparents' generation was able to like buy a house with a white picket fence off of one income.
You could just show up and somebody would be like, here's a job.
Hey, you know, so you bring an extra pack of cigars, you just start handing out cigars. Now you're like one of the guys and you just can like get a job on the floor. And like next thing you know, you're like the star of a show.
Yeah.
It's like that's so corporate and exploited now that you would probably be making minimum wage as a part-time intern for years before you even have a chance to make it in the arts.
Right. Yeah, we don't have a system in this country to financially support creative people. I mean, that's why you have nepotism. That's why like every actor is the child of another actor. You know, it is an absolute lottery to find people that can be discovered without coming from wealth or from privilege, because this country doesn't value art in a work it doesn't value art as like something that you can do to like feed your family. I guess it values art in the sense of like, oh, we should have entertainment and we should have media to distract us. But I guess now people are just going to be like, oh, I can just AI that. You know, I can just do an AI graphic instead of paying an artist to design it, you know, because we haven't created a culture of valuing like the workmanship and the labor that goes into making these things.
Right. And making sure that people who create art can create art and still live so that their products can still be affordable.
The whole like starving artist thing is like something that is even artists themselves perpetuate this notion that like you have to struggle to be a real artist. Like you're not a real artist if you don't have been put through the grinder of like paying 3 jobs and not even being able to make your rent. Like it shouldn't be that way.
It's a false choice.
We should have systems. We should have services, tax-funded services to give artists money to live. And other countries do that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that America doesn't do that other major countries do. But to go back to you and I meet, and I mean, the second I laid eyes on you, I was like, oh my God, this guy's special.
I just got a Facebook memory of that day. It was this around this time, 2017.
But at the same time, just to keep it so professional, you had a gift. You knew how to see things through your art, through your photography, through your videography, things that, you know, I try to replicate, and I don't have that degree. I don't have that background. And frankly, I'm not a visual artist like that. And so like, I try my best, but I don't come anywhere near close what you're able to produce. And I remember at the time I was fundraising just to support salaries because we were super grassroots. Like we didn't have enough money to pay ourselves, let alone staff. But the first grant funding that I got, I put into funding you because at that time, in the grassroots organizing space, I felt being able to properly communicate a story and being able to visualize the mission without even needing words. And you captured really beautiful photography to be able to do that helps with the long-term trust building and storytelling that then turns into fundraising. And from the moment, and I can probably go back through the accounts and like draw a direct correlation to when we hired you and when we were able to raise a decent amount of money to then hire 12, 15, you know, and then eventually a whole group of people. I bring that up because every single person I've had on the podcast so far, I talk about what the Democratic Party is missing and what different organizations that are on the front lines of every issue are missing. And the biggest thing I feel is that ability to connect to people and tell stories. things are obviously set against us because everything's corporate. So even social media and the ability to get eyes on your content and the algorithm to work in your favor is like a corporate exploited.
The attention economy.
Exactly.
Brutal. Yeah.
But I'm just curious to hear your insights because as this artist, what do you think the Democratic Party or just the political atmosphere is missing right now?
Oh man. I mean, we I guess we talk about this a lot. I guess we have this conversation a lot because we got into the Pod Johns, the Jon Stewart, Pod Save America, and they've been talking about this a lot because I feel like every week there's a new study or new report about like how the Democratic Party is in the shitter. There was what was the latest one that voter registration net loss is like like
over 1 million voters less than
in the whole
Republicans right
country.
now.
So there's always something like that. I mean, there's a lot of data driven stuff to point to as to like how desperately terrible of a place the party is in, much less, the fact that we lost the presidency in both houses of Congress. But from a more sort of like, less like quantitative level, more qualitative level, I think that, and I'm not the first person to say this, I think that the election of Zohran Mamdani as the mayor of New York, that is like a lightning strike. And we need to be paying a lot of attention to that. And obviously, the mayor of New York City is not, you can't apply that to like the president or all these seats in Congress. It's not the same. But as far as like what the Democratic Party represents and how the party can locate a person that can push the party to the place where it needs to be, someone like Zohran Mamdani is going to be the answer to a lot of these questions, because what he has done is he has centered the issues and the policies. And his opponents, Cuomo, Adams, the establishment, they try to throw all these crazy things at him. There was just the newest thing I saw today about how he couldn't bench press. Like he was too weak to like do a bench press, and they're going crazy with it. They are just saying like he's too weak, he can't run this city. Look at Mayor Adams can bench press, like you should vote for him. So they're leaning on all these things that ultimately like doesn't matter if you can bench press or not, if to be able to understand like how to run the office of the mayor. But it just shows that they have nothing, that they have to use these meaningless things because they can't penetrate through the shield that he's created of centering the issues. Mm-hmm. And that's why he won so decisively. Mm-hmm. And I don't have all the answers. I'm not an expert, I'm far from it. But I think part of the reason why Democrats are losing is because we focus too much on identity politics, and we focus too much on like this idea of you should vote for someone because they're a good person or they represent some kind of demographic, woman, person of color, LGBT, what have you. But I mean, another guy we love, or I love, is Hassan Piker, Hassanabi on Twitch, where my Hassanabi head's at. He says it all the time. Put the policies in the bag, bro. Just put the policies in the bag. And voters are smart. Maybe not all voters, there's a lot of stupid people, but for the most part, Americans understand the basics of what a representative in government can do for you. Even if that understanding is warped, there's a basic understanding of like, I am voting for you so that you can do something for me. And Zohran keeps bringing up affordability, access to housing, to food, to transportation. Like these are very tangible things that New Yorkers want and need on a daily basis. And that's what his campaign has been about. And that's why he won. That's why he's going to be the next mayor of New York. And it's not because he's a Muslim, like socialist, cool guy, handsome, attractive. I mean, I'm sure those things help. But if he didn't have the policies front and center, he wouldn't have won, right? So I think that is like one of the core things to me, in my opinion. I mean, you could list other things, and you can keep using Zohran as a case study. He's just cool, you know. The brand is cool, the font is great, the colors are great.
That's exactly why I wanted to ask you, because you taught me everything I know about branding, marketing, framing a shot, lighting, all these things. And as I started working in politics, that is not an innate part of campaigning. In fact, you're lucky if you find a candidate that knows how to use just like basic features on their phone. And it's such a missed opportunity. I've always felt like if the Democrats could learn how to just properly market themselves and do like a decent TikTok and learn how to capture like authenticity for real, we could really have a fighting chance. But it's so, I almost have to applaud Trump on this.
Oh, yeah.
He knows how to recruit the Fox News razzle dazzle,
in your face,
show men and women,
all caps,
who know how to steal the attention. Like you said, it's an attention economy. And the thing that I love about Zohran, and it's something that you innately taught me in our young organizing days, is that he was trying something different and leveraging really effective communication strategies that are like young and catchy and quick, with like a fresh brand that, you know, we can get into the nitty gritty of like the branding and all of that. But like keeping that messaging, you can package up anything really. But if you're selling basic status quo on just the same tired political font over and over again and just saying like freedom, and then running for office, of course you're not going to catch the attention of people, because Trump is outwardly using very similar Nazi symbols in his branding, sending a clear message. If you are a white supremacist, you're on our side. If you want to have a bigoted message, if you want to be unapologetic about your racism, you're on our side. And he's full-throated about it. Whereas the Democrats try to play this like, we can't really tell you all of who we are. And I think Kamala Harris had advisors who admittedly said, you know, we didn't want her to do long, extended, off-the-cuff interviews because we were too scared that if she showed too much of herself, that she would turn off some crucial voters.
I mean, there's a huge problem with Democratic leaders, candidates who just feel like cardboard cutouts.
Yeah.
You know, because it's such a big tent. You have to represent all these different kinds of people. And I think they're scared to have any type of individuality because they don't want to alienate these potential, like this non-existent, like centrist moderate that's going to keep the party together. And they don't want to do what the Republicans have done, which is go full tilt crazy. And it's working for them. And they're winning elections because they embrace what you just said, the bigotry, the extremism. They are fired up about that. People are excited about that. They feel like they have a fighter in their corner. And we need someone who's going to do the same. I mean, is that Gavin Newsom? I don't fucking know. I don't like Gavin Newsom, but
he's trying something.
At least he's trying to do something that makes people feel like they have a fighter in their corner, someone who's going to swing punches and not look at the ref and be like, hey, they're not allowed to do that. Well, the ref is asleep. There is no ref. The ref
There's
is
no
gone.
ref. The ref is the Supreme Court, and they're not on our side. I would say that, I would say that at this moment, even just this podcast, no one wants to hear me talk. No one gives a crap what we think. But I think even just doing this podcast for me I'm just desperate to hear somebody say something about something. And if
Right.
that has to be me, it's similar to like when I ask people to run for office. Like if you get to a place where you're just tired of not seeing leaders speak to your values, speak to your own values. And if that means creating a podcast, do it. If that means doing a town hall, do it. But like we just have to have this reset mentally of throwing it all out there and seeing what sticks instead of going by the same playbook.
Yeah.
Because that playbook is making us lose.
I mean, you tell me how dark you want to get, because it's my first time on this brand new podcast you started, and I don't want people to run away. I mean, I don't know, maybe people want it dark, but
I want to go dark.
But this is what I was saying before we started recording. I don't I mean, we are pretty fucked as a country. Like we are seeing the rise of authoritarianism full force in the United States. It's crazy how much has happened in just 7 months.
It doesn't feel like people are acting like that.
Well, that's why it's happening, because people are just allowing it to happen. No one is stepping in. And I still don't understand why. I mean, I feel like for some people it is that, yes, they are just evil and they just salivate at the thought of like taking women's right to vote away and bodily autonomy away and breaking up gay couples, taking away their right to marry interracial couples, like there's probably people who just live for that, but that can't be everybody. And all these people that are just refusing to speak out, refusing to do anything, too scared, too complacent. I don't believe that all those people are in the same boat of just wanting the evil things to happen. But if you are just standing by and allowing it to happen, it all gets to the same result, in which more and more power gets consolidated, and we have a full-on dictator that refuses to leave, and everybody's left looking around, wondering how we let this happen. And the horrible thing, the darkest thing, is that I don't know how we get out of this. Because ultimately, like, the longer we wait, or not wait, but the more time passes and things don't change for the better, the harder it gets to climb out of this hole, and the fewer options there are to climb out of the hole.
and that really impacts every single decision. Like I think about it like, you're in your early 30s, you're a Hispanic man who's white passing. In my head, you're the target demographic for the Democrats because you are liberally minded, but people don't really target your generation messaging to you, except for this extreme radical MAGA movement is finding a way to break through to people of your age and your demographic, and that's absolutely terrifying, because we saw this crazy red shift in people who should totally understand why fighting for human rights should be the way.
Maybe you should have a MAGA person on to
I have a list.
Try to figure out like why that is, because it still shocks me to see people that you would think have values and have morals and wouldn't be susceptible to voting for hatred and championing this movement of hatred and violence and extremism. And yet they do it, and I don't know why. And to go back to the allusion we made earlier about like this overlap between like environmental causes and far right extremism, the rise of like RFK Jr. in Maha, and everything that's happened since COVID with like the vaccines and just all of that. There is a very specific group of people uh, who voted for Trump, who support like good health habits, protecting the environment, protecting nature. These are things that should be bipartisan, but the way that they have been targeted and the way they have been spoken to through social media algorithms and all these influencers is so fascinating to me. It is one of the most mind-boggling and just fascinating things that I've seen play out over these last couple of years, where you see people that are seemingly headed in the right direction, and championing these good issues and good causes. It's like, yes, we should want our food to be healthier. We should want our air and our water to be cleaner. And then at the very end, right before you're going to get to the thing, you go and you support RFK, and you go and you support Donald Trump. And it's like, how does that happen? I don't understand.
But you do, because you're a communications expert. So in my mind, the Trump team is like a team of like executive producers for like Fox News. And then the Democrats, they're still knocking on doors and like text messaging.
Yeah. They haven't,
and they're playing with like
digital,
stones and sticks and not using the tools that we have today that are free in the most part, advertising through social media and telling genuine stories and recruiting leaders that have something powerful to say. Instead, they're trying to put everybody in a blazer, everybody in front of an American flag, and saying the same talking points from when like our grandparents had elected officials. And it's like so annoying and so repetitive that you just get to a place where you're like, man, I want something new. I want something fresh. And that's how I believe Trump could stand there and talk about grabbing women by the pussy and shooting people in the face in New York and getting away with it. And at the same time, bring in the Maha moms that are like, I don't want my kids to eat poison. And we're like, yep, Trump's team is the team to go to because we have something to say. And it's like the Democrats
cutting all regulations. They're firing all the people who like do inspections to make sure our food isn't poison.
And I think I believe, and I have to be as fucked as we are, like I have to be positive that they'll come back to our side as long as we do our part and hire our version of really effective messengers. Really effective messengers who know how to have good comms.
Right.
And when I say comms, communication skills.
There's a lesson to be learned in specifically the young male shift to Trump in last year's election. And not to say that was like the decider, but maybe it was, because it was a very close election. And I think there's data to back up that may have been like one of the main deciders, because you're right. It's like it is a marketing thing. It is a tactic thing that the Dems just have not figured out. And again, there's a lot of data to back up just the size of this system, this enterprise that exists on the internet of podcasts and YouTube channels and all these things that speak directly to these people.
Yeah.
And it's, it's funny because it ties into Hollywood too, because
absolutely,
one thing I see a lot is this whole other side of the internet that you probably never see because you're just looking
I run away from it
because you're just looking at Pod Save America clips and chess. And I see, well, not so much anymore, because now all I see is also Pod Save America and chess. But
I got him.
But this side of YouTube that is people complaining about Star Wars and Marvel.
Like, I don't want that black mermaid.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and it has been consistent and it's been loud for years.
And they've been paid by the right to
Yeah.
say that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I
Like
mean, maybe
influencers were literally cut checks to complain about racist propaganda, white
right.
supremacist rhetoric.
Maybe not all the specific channels, but at least like the mentality and the way that YouTube organizes its algorithm and serves you content.
Yeah.
Like you may go from a video where someone wasn't paid by a right-wing group, but they're saying things that align perfectly with the guy who was paid by the right-wing group, right? So ultimately, if you're not a direct like asset of the GOP, but you're saying things that are part of that playbook, then what's the difference? You might as well take the check, you know? And it's a huge thing. And it's something that's been, like I said, very consistent, very powerful, very loud for years. There's entire ecosystem, entire environment of usually white men complaining and crying and screaming about how diverse their beloved shows and movies are becoming. And it's all woke. It's always woke. Woke. Star Wars has gone woke because they put a black woman in a show that nobody watched. Did terrible numbers, but suddenly it's the end of the world because Star Wars is having a black woman lead in, and now everything is crumbling, everything is woke, everything's computer.
Well, I just wonder though, because Hollywood is definitely an engine of propaganda.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the biggest things that I've been hesitant to get as into pop culture as like I've wanted you to get into politics, because like going down that route, there's so many parts of Hollywood that feel very inauthentic to me. And
but I mean, that's the whole point. It's a dream machine.
No. Like it's not necessarily coming from an artist's dream. It's coming from a room of corporate people that are trying to figure out their version of an algorithm to make sure butts are in seats.
It's not a vision from an artist. Yeah.
And that really turns me off to a lot of today's mass-produced works and film.
It's just slop. We call it slop.
And I think that's actually a really great parallel to explain politics right now, is that people
want slop.
People can't stop talking. Even people that are against Trump can't stop talking about Trump. And I found that so interesting, because even when Biden was in office, it was like every time you turn on the news, they're still talking about Trump. And I think what it is
it's like
he's
like
interesting.
Heroin. It's like heroin.
He's like a bull in a china shop, and you can't look away. It's like a car accident happening in front of you. You can't look away. It's clickbaity, and people are almost attracted to the drama. And he's an expert at wielding it. He's an expert at wielding it to turn away from the Epstein files or whatever other thing he doesn't want to look at. And I think that when I bring up Hollywood being a conduit for propaganda, you know that you're not in an authoritarian regime when you start to see Hollywood kiss the ring, when you start to see these huge production firms like.
Well, it's happening.
It's happening. They're
Look at Paramount.
Exactly.
They needed this merger to go through. So they shut down 60 Minutes. What happened with 60 Minutes? A guy quit because the main guy quit because he was being pressured.
To have another say in the room on their reporting.
They canceled the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, ending his contract in May. And it's also that this merger would go through. It's the other thing was CBS News had to pay like $16 million or something, which I think ended up being the same sum that Disney paid for a very similar lawsuit, right? So that the extortion part of it, the pay to play, the quid pro quo is now the standard. Now there's this expectation that you have to bribe Trump otherwise, like, you're not going to get anything.
But it's like, when does it stop? You know, like, I feel like A24 is a symptom of people wanting to move away from the slop, people wanting to find,
Sure.
you know, new stories and and now look at how much A24 has grown into this like
Yeah.
huge voice in film, which back then it was like there was a handful of small indie films that people gravitated towards and they built that clout from scratch. I'd like to believe that our political moment is now, where all the airwaves are so just clogged with Trump chaos. Biden was silent for
Biden's
years.
dead.
Not literally.
R.I.P.
But we need, and any other candidate is not going to be able to fill a town hall room if they're literally saying the same talking points. Like, I'm not Trump. America is better than that. And that's the extent of how much I'm going to stick my neck out on any of the policies that I believe in.
But you don't even need to be the most like charismatic. Like, everyone thinks that they're Obama, right? All these people like Pete and Shapiro, like, they all want to be Obama.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need that. Put the policies in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I see it with Kelly, Commissioner Semrad. You know, that is somebody who may not be this like razzle dazzle showwoman, but she's effective, incredibly effective, because she always brings it back to the issues.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, that's what people want.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you. And with Trump, you can say the same thing. You know, he always brings it back to his issues, immigration, right? And so you have all these people salivating at wanting to kill migrants and put them in concentration camps, because like he always brings it back to that. It's always
like the root of all their problems.
The wall, the border.
And he's just constantly just hitting that nail over and over and over again to make everybody so terrified. But they look away from the mass shootings by almost every single one of them was a white man, or they look away from the priests that were pedophiles, hundreds of priests, hundreds and hundreds of priests.
I mean, back to the whole attention economy thing. It's like you can only process so much. And we are in a mode of over processing every day, 24/7. Like, we cannot possibly digest the amount of information that we are pushing into our brains, right? And it's causing a lot of people to shut down and break down and pull away completely from being able to do anything. You know, we always talk about how, you know, you hear stories or you see like reenactments of the civil rights area and like the Black Panthers and all of that, and you wonder, like, how can we ever get back to that, where everyone, like, rooms are full of people taking action, getting ready to get to work? And I think that part of that is because like we are being destabilized. We are being frozen by this overload. And I really truly believe that the internet is one of the most, it's an incredible invention. It has done so many amazing things. We are putting this podcast out through the magic of the internet.
Yeah.
But it is destroying people's brains.
Yeah.
It is fully like cooking people just fully mentally.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we fix that. I mean, I do see some young people wanting to reject the online world, the digital world, wanting to you know, taking steps to remove themselves and to be more present. And that gives me hope, you know. When I go to the movies and I see a bunch of young people and they're not on their phones and they're talking to each other and they're out and about in the world, that tells me that, you know, there might still be some hope for people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think that the rise of fascism in America is tied to the internet, and the collapse of like the digital world with the physical world. and we haven't been able to like handle it.
So if 2020 was a fork in the road, I see this as another fork, but I see this more so as a path that is very, very, very narrow and a path that is very, very wide. And the way that I can explain that is if next year is, the midterms, 2026, and then obviously 2028, we have another presidential election.
Maybe.
We have a very small window to be able to fight things like the climate crisis. And we have a very small window to address a majority of people's needs. Like that breaking point of obviously Black Lives Matter movements, of wanting, trans rights, of wanting just equal rights and women's rights in 2020. Like that was such a breaking point for so many people. But this is even more like most people, like bankruptcies right now in the first 6 months of Trump being in office have skyrocketed to pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah, it's more than the bankruptcies from the pandemic.
Most people do not have a savings and are one paycheck away from being literally homeless. And I'm not saying that the Biden administration didn't do anything to help with addressing people's needs. I think the ARPA funding was absolutely essential to cancel medical debt, to help small businesses. I mean, that money is still helping people to this day. The Inflation Reduction Act was a huge surge in renewable energy. It's part of why you work in solar and I'm able to work in clean energy. And I think that helped boost our economy and put us on kind of an international stage around, addressing the climate crisis, which is an economic issue. But now this fork that's coming up in these next two major elections, the fork in the road, is that I think we're going to see explosions of deaths from not having access to healthcare, an explosion in homelessness because the cost of living is skyrocketing, even though Trump said he would handle prices on day one. And frankly, the big, beautiful bill that Trump passed is going to transfer an incredible amount of wealth and social services away from working people who were literally surviving on Social Security, we're surviving on food stamps, we're surviving on kids getting access to meals in their schools.
That bill is such a disaster.
That bill is going to cripple people in this way where I think economically we have an opportunity to run candidates with really good communication skills, with a really strong message now that could sweep. And frankly, I don't know if that has to be limited to Democrats. I don't know where the Republicans are that are the progressives, because I meet young progressive Republicans that say, like, I believe in climate change. I just grew up religious. I don't feel the same way that you do on like abortion, but they want to see immigration reform. They want to see more,
don't vote for the guy who's going to be rounding up migrants.
But you have to remember, as a communications expert, he's still able to take issues and turn it into this fear-mongering machine to make it feel like it's prevalent to young people. Like, I've had a conversation with a MAGA recently who said point blank, like, places like New York are putting migrants up in hotels when I'm struggling to feed my own kids. Like, that's money that should be going to me. AKA, I want social services. I rely on food stamps. I rely on blank. And I see you're giving social services to someone who's not a legal citizen. They have this scarcity mindset of you're doing for them, which is less for me. And they do not realize that we are doing corporate welfare by the billions, if not trillions, for entities that do not pay back into the system. Migrants pay more money back into the system to help those people feed their kids than Jeff Bezos does in his private yacht.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the one big beautiful bill is it's a wall. It is a shield, a fortress that the elite have built to make sure that they make it through the next 50 years of civil unrest. Like it's the transfer of wealth that law is going to create. It basically means that all the millionaires, it's going to create more billionaires and probably more millionaires. But it's going to send the elite into an even higher class of wealth, and it's going to protect their assets as everything else crumbles.
Yeah.
Because the devastation that we're going to see from climate change, these floods are not going to go away. They're only going to get worse. The storms are going to get worse. The displacement of people whose communities are destroyed, it's only going to perpetuate.
It's getting worse. And we're talking about like migrants as our biggest fear.
There's
like,
going to be more migrants.
It's like your house is gone. Like, why do you think migrants are your top priority when there were floods this week in Tennessee, West Virginia, Arizona, North Carolina, and Texas, and all over the country? And Trump didn't visit any of those places, let alone did he speak to the climate crisis to let people understand that this is, if you're feeling like this is not normal, I'm telling you that it's not normal. And here's the bucket of solutions that we're going to address it. He completely ignores it and finds a new marginalized target to distract people from asking any more questions than that. Because I'm telling you, and your house is washed away, the last person on your mind to blame is going to be a migrant.
They'll still find a way to do it.
When migrants are the ones that are usually paid to go into the toxic slush that's left over after a flood to clean up. And it's so crazy to me. So, I don't know where the Republicans are that are progressive. They're right now, it's like MAGA stealing the airwaves, but I think what Kamala Harris was trying to do in campaigning with Liz Cheney was trying to figure out a way to bring those people in, because I think they thought that Liz Cheney was a representative of the progressive Republicans that are tired of the Trumpism that's taking over their party.
They're tired, but they'll still vote for it, clearly.
And frankly, I'm tired of the established Democrats, but I still voted for Joe Biden, who frankly could have done
goes both ways. Yeah.
I think another thing is that like Trump is rubber stamping a lot of things, mostly illegally, just through the pipe. And Democrats continue to play by the rules, which I applaud.
It's not working.
There's some things that I think Joe Biden could have done to help expedite some other opportunities.
As soon as the Supreme Court ruled that a president can do whatever they want as long as it's official acts,
he should have been like,
he should have gone crazy with the executive orders, just how Trump did. But Democrats are incapable of doing that.
And it's just, I mean, they also want to ignore some of the populist ideas because they have donors to answer to, and they honestly are trying to pander to the same donors.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is at the end of the day.
Uniparty is definitely a thing. And if we ever want to break through that, we're gonna need people who explicitly refuse donations from these corporations. That's why AOC is so important. I wanted to talk about AOC because I think that we wouldn't have Zohran without AOC. Like you don't get AOC without Bernie, and then you don't get Zohran without AOC. Mm-hmm. And hopefully the next president, whoever that is, will be an extension of that line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Bernie, AOC, Zohran, next president, right? Like this is the movement that we need to be championing. And I don't know if AOC is going to be that person. I mean, I frankly don't know if she wants to be, but I think that we need somebody who's going to pierce through that uniparty. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what Bernie did. Obviously, like he didn't do it enough. Otherwise he would have won. But he fucking made it way farther than anybody else, at least in our lifetime or that I'm aware of. to really uh, spotlight and focus on these issues, Medicare for all, working class issues, taking money out of politics, um, that will bring in this coalition of people who are fed up. Because the one thing that we always talk about is the fact that elections are decided by the people who don't vote, right? If the people who are eligible to vote were quantified as a voting block, quote unquote, they would be the biggest block. And I think the point of conversations like this, of this podcast, is to like get into that, because we're going to continue to have these conversations in a closed loop, and we're going to continue to get to the same results and lose over and over again, and knock on the same doors, knock on the same, call the same list of phone numbers until we address that fact of how many people in this country simply do not participate. They matter too. They should be spoken to. And I feel like that's what Bernie did. And that's to some extent what AOC and Zohran have done. Obviously, very different audiences there when you're talking about like just again, New York versus the whole country. But you get what I'm getting at. Like it's a sample size. It's an extrapolation of a very, very big country. It's very disconnected, spread out country that has a lot of variety of viewpoints. But if you're going to try to find some common ground, you have to start looking at that. You have to start looking at why do these people continuously sit these things out, and yet they're still part of society, and they still use the roads and hospitals and
we can talk about that.
Police and public services.
Because I mean, look at us, for example, right? Like, we're politically inclined, yeah. But if we weren't, we couldn't afford to have kids. Like, we own this house, but only because my grandma died and left me like 10 grand. And that's all that she had to leave really anyone. Like, I'm like the first person in my family's generational, history that was able to inherit generational wealth. And it's like, I don't think a next generation after us is going to have as much opportunity even then. Like, before we even really were able to like take off and fly, we were like our generation has still been continuously suppressed. Like, we make 40% less than our parents did, and even more so than our grandparents. And like, if you really want, like, it is a privilege. You have to be of privilege to be able to do political organizing. You have to have a foundation where you're able to make your bills, you're able to afford to live and to afford to have social relationships without any drama. Because, when times are tough, sometimes family dynamics are even more tough. And all those factors lead to you being less and less able to be politically aware and politically involved. So it's a privilege. You have to be of privilege to do that. And then the other part is like, so many generations have been just stagnated in their wealth and their ability to gain wealth and to have a vacation, to be able to afford healthcare, that I bet you many people just say, all I can control is my little scope of my own little world, and I'm still barely making it. And frankly, when Democrats and Republicans have been in power, nothing's changed. So like, why even should I?
Yeah.
Because if you're not fighting for me to take something off my plate, why would I even answer the door when one of your canvassers knock?
And frankly, as authoritarianism continues to rise, a lot of things are still not going to change. That's going to be one of the most dangerous things of the next 4 years, is that we are going to see a dictatorship rise. And for the most part, most people are not really going to notice. There's not going to be a sizable impact in the day to day for most people. You'll see more news updates of more people being grabbed by ICE, put into camps, maybe more protests, maybe more assassinations, like what we saw in Minnesota, which, by the way, I can't believe that's like
came and went and
barely being addressed.
Nobody changed the colors of any murals, like lights or anything, like nothing.
And things will probably escalate to the point where, these troops that they're deploying in DC, they're saying New York and Chicago are next, things like that could get more intense. You'll start to have more checkpoints. So maybe, in some parts of the country, there will be more pressure and you'll be more inconvenienced in your day to day. And the trip to the grocery store becomes a little bit more hectic just because there's more military presence or there's more protests. Or you start to see what happens in places like Colombia, where I was born, where there's like car bombs every other day, and you still go to work, you still got to send your emails, you still got to take the kids to school, you still got to put gas in your car, you still got to, go to the gym. So that is, I think, to me, that is one of the scariest parts about what we're about to live through.
Yeah.
Is that sort of disassociative feeling of knowing that our democracy is evaporating, but not being able to like truly like grab onto it and feel it in a real way because of that privilege that you're talking about. Because, those who do feel it and are going to be impacted are, for the most part, the least privileged of us.
Well, I just feel like we're being basically zip tied into black bag. Like they're slowly disassembling our economy. They're crippling us financially, even more so. Like running on this idea that you're going to help the economy through these tariffs and that you're going to address the costs of groceries on day one, and then turning around and imposing harsh tariffs and basically creating this unpredictable market for industry, basically created such turbulence that now we're seeing skyrocketing increases in inflation. And I think that mixed with the unregulated artificial intelligence movement that's happening right now is going to cause such a shift in our culture, because there's this race for an unaccountable corporate race for offloading their labor force and being able to automate as much as possible, which then in turn will leave more people in impoverished situations with no striking power. Like strikes helped build our nation. Like strikes helped get us like OSHA and the ability to have like disability accountability so that we have ADA compliance and weekends and like, overtime pay. Like without the labor as our collateral, we're basically just left to be homeless in camps and just mowed down by like the cleanup crew.
And this is something that's been happening for a long time, for decades, even the erosion of labor unions and the rise of, big tech and all of that. It's very much like a 21st century thing that we're just now getting into like the next layer of it with AI. But man, we could do a whole other podcast.
We will.
On that, because I tried so hard to understand the technology and fight it and embrace it and use it and learn it. And I'm at a point now where I see how ubiquitous it's become. I see so many AI generated images and texts on the internet. And I just hope that people embrace their humanity. And I hope that people can push themselves to use their brains and not rely on some chatbot to dump out some garbage for you when you can just try a little bit, flex those muscles, use your noggin. I mean, the fact that sorry if folks hear that, that is the dog gagging. The fact that I just see so much AI garbage and nobody is even trying to like
to say
pump
like,
the
hey, this is
brakes
not
on it.
appropriate. Like every AI image that
horrible.
you see is like a job taken from an artist.
It's not even that. I mean, it definitely is that, but it's also just like this degradation of what makes us human.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if everything you're seeing on the internet was generated by an app or a bot, a LLM, whatever
That's stealing
it is.
from artists' actual work, by the way.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about art.
No, I know.
I'm talking about like literally anything, any word, any pixel on the screen that wasn't made by a human. And I understand like the complexities, like the gray areas of like these tools that help us. And
your
obviously,
anti-AI rights.
like there's, you know, there's many things that AI does in the digital world that like help us, but I'm talking more so about like the rise of generative AI and the overall reliance on it, and the fact that with so much oversaturation of it, when you open up a feed and it's all AI generated, it's like, why are you even looking at that anymore?
Yeah.
What are you getting from it? You know, what if a person didn't make it,
what are you
then why are you consuming it? What value does it have?
You're giving your attention in this attention economy. It's like a vote. You're giving your vote to this slop.
I literally the other
robot
day,
made slop.
The other day, or I think yesterday or today, I was served a video. I get served a lot of reviews for movies because that's what I do. And I see so many random things being served, and a lot of times I'll click on them just to see. And I was served one that was completely AI generated, like a conversation just like the one we're having, and the voices were not human. Wow. They were AI generated, an AI generated podcast.
Wow.
And it was I should have listened to it because it was actually ironic because it was about Eddington.
Wow.
Which if you've seen Eddington, you know how like AI and data centers play into the plot of that movie. But I immediately like closed it out and I was like disgusted by it because that is like a little bell being rung. That's a little flag being planted of like, okay, now this is normal.
This is normal.
Now it's normal for YouTube to push channels like this that are probably going to grow. And I see it on TikTok too.
It's so gross though. Like, why are you attracted to that? Like, that's so.
Well, I think a lot of people don't know. That's the crazy thing.
See, that's fucked up.
Is that I think a lot of people will watch that and they think they're listening to a real person.
There's been a couple times when I've gotten tricked and I'm like, it's like, ugh,
disgusting.
Ugh.
It's like violating.
It is. It's like, how dare you? And I don't know if that's going to cause an outright rejection, but when I know like personal people in my life, including my own mother, and I'm pretty sure my father too, like they were swept up into a terrible spiral algorithm on social media from the second they inherited their first Gmail account. And I'm sickened by that because like you lose people, like it's ruining people's lives.
Yeah.
Like when you say it's breaking people's brains, it's literally indoctrinating them into like a cult. And that's before we have very convincing robot generated items.
I am so scared of the day when, you brought up these floods, when we see a video that looks like someone's filmed it on their phone
And it's
of a
fucking
disaster like this happening, and it didn't even happen.
It didn't even happen. And I'll tell you, when people say climate change isn't real, it's a hoax, I'm like, I wish all the videos I was seeing was like a freaking AI generated. I wish I was wrong. But this could be a very slippery slope of someone like a Trump saying that's fake.
Yeah.
Because they love saying fake news.
Think about January 6th, right? Like, what happens when we get to the point when you can just, and I think we might already be there, honestly, but when you can generate images like the photographs taken of the mob storming the Capitol.
And then you have no press that can do any real like journalism to be able to say that's not real.
Yeah.
But capitalism must prevail. So there has to be a wave of, I'm seeing all of these new apps and stuff that like can help screen different things so that you can determine if it's real, or basically, even though social media should have those authentication systems already built in place. But
apparently Facebook is downsizing their AI division. So at least that might point to some type of slowing down.
I pray that it's just some rich man's race to have the cool next fancy thing, and it's actually being rejected by a ton of people, or just people are too like set in their ways to learn how to use it.
You showed me this disgusting little AI cartoon person.
Like Facebook recommends, like took my face and just like made an AI thing, and I didn't click it, but I was like, oh my God, this is fucking weird.
Right.
And it's inappropriate and no one's asking for it. And I don't know why they're pushing it on us, but AI is very expensive. So for these like social media and tech bros to be chasing it when it's super expensive, it's getting a lot of bad press right now. And I'd like to believe that enough people are rejecting it, that it's going to be an expensive waste of money. But I think the race is not necessarily solely in capturing our attention. They want to automate as much as possible to get rid of their need for a labor force. And when I say they, I mean Jeff Bezos is heavily funding a lot of these AI ventures and these automation ventures. They don't want to pay people. And that is intertwined in capitalism messaging and intertwined in patriotism somehow, that if you speak ill towards capitalism, you're not a real American. And that really frustrates me, because corporations should not get away with allowing people to die in their warehouse or know that a tornado or a natural disaster is about to hit and not being allowed to be sent home.
Right. They don't value humanity.
They're not valuing humanity. And I think we need to take a step as the general public to say, I want more from a corporation. I like a company that values its people and values the time that it takes to make this product. There was this Hallmark movie that's like kind of a joke now, but there was this Hallmark movie I remember my grandma watching, where it was like this guy moves into a small town with his dad, who opens up an automated cookie factory. And there's, of course, the love interest is this like daughter of a beloved aging guy who made cookies, and their
and you're describing every Hallmark movie.
Right. And their Christmas cookie like business has been there for like 100 years, and like half of the people of this town work there. Cookie. And here comes this and the guy at the end who has the family factory that's like automating people out of their jobs and like killing this small business just decides, I'm going to shut down this factory to preserve this small cookie business. Like, in what world is that America? In what world is that the story where
you're not going to exploit your workers?
like he's like, I'm going to shut it all down and be with my wife and just run the family owned little cookie shop in this town. Like, so sweet. Wouldn't that be so nice if that's just the way the world worked? The truth is that it is now incentivized through kickbacks to stakeholders and stock buybacks that you're able to now exploit harder figure out ways to undercut and undermine your services and the quality of your product. And goes the same way for Hollywood slop. And that is now the expectation of being in business.
Yeah. But again, I think that we have to try to find some kind of hope in the youths. And, I brought up Star Wars and all the haters, it's like there's this whole conversation in the Star Wars fandom as to like how Disney has handled their acquisition of Star Wars, and all these haters, they make their millions or their money on basically saying that like Disney is woke and Disney is destroying Star Wars. And I think that, not to give them credit, but they're pointing to something very real, which is what you brought up earlier, which is this like focus group, like made by committee approach to art. And I enjoy some of the newer Disney Star Wars stuff, but for the most part, Andor aside, because that feels like the exception that proves the rule, it is this like, it is slop. Most of it, for the most part, is just this kind of shapeless entertainment product made to sell toys to children. And I think young people are becoming like aware of that.
Yeah.
And they're rejecting it. And there's a huge contingency of young, new Star Wars fans that point to the Disney stuff and say, I don't want that. Give me the prequels. Give me the movies from like that were released in like 2002, 2000.
I like Andor.
Well, yeah, because Andor is good. But but what the point that I'm trying to get at is that those movies, the prequels, the ones released in 1999, 2002, 2005, they were like hated when they came out. People thought that they were horrible. But now, all these years later, they're being reclaimed by the kids who saw them that are now becoming adults.
Because it's authentic.
And exactly. And pointing to them as an artistic vision. Flawed, sure, but not this like corporatized product, right? And those movies, for all their faults, they're kind of boring and bad, but there's a theme, there's an idea that they're trying to get across that these new ones are not. The new Star Wars stuff, again, Andor aside, is mostly about how Star Wars is cool. And
look at this.
Yeah,
Remember this?
It's just about itself. The prequels are about how fascism rises from the soil of democracy.
Right.
And how a fascist autocrat can be elected into power, and how a democracy shoots itself in the foot and willingly gives up its democratic power to a fascist leader. That's what those movies are about. And then young people, whether consciously or unconsciously, they gravitate towards the idea that those movies are about something, and that they exist as this artistic vision. And so to kind of like tie it all together, it's I think it's just about like making space for young people to make those discoveries in all aspects of life. And I always look at things from a lens of like movies and pop culture and all of that, but you can apply it to anything. You can apply it to any hobby, any interest, any lifestyle. You want to create that space for curiosity, for imagination, and you have to be willing to accept all kinds of different points of view and all kinds of different opinions for the ultimate goal of empathy and kindness and wanting a better future for everybody. And I think that that is ultimately what right wingers lack. They cannot imagine, they don't have the curiosity, they don't have the imagination of what it must be like to be an immigrant from Guatemala coming here with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They can't possibly picture what that person must be living through.
Mm-hmm.
They're incapable of that. And that's why they championed throwing them into camps.
And the ones that can, like the Hispanic population that voted for Trump, they like selectively heard that he's only going to do this to the criminals and just stopped there. And I hope that we can continue to ask questions on like how we can have good policies, but have strong follow through. And I think the Democrats or somebody, but hopefully the Democrats will embrace in their message that joy, that love, that curiosity, and frankly, like the expectation of the follow through in our policies all encompass in like one party. Because nobody, I just bring it back into politics as everything's political.
Yeah.
It's like for a young person to be attracted to the older Star Wars, it's a beautiful symbol for like how we attract young people to the authentic movement that's in the Democratic Party. You cannot do that by having someone who's going to read by a script in every single interview,
Right.
talking the same talking points and wearing a suit every single time you've ever seen a single photograph of them. You know, like the Fight the Oligarchy tour. I just watched 2 of Bernie Sanders' speeches on his tour in West Virginia, and I think it was Iowa. He and AOC are traveling all over the place, just like doing these tours, wearing just a plain button up and like jeans,
yeah.
which is so symbolic in the branding again. And I've never heard, I'm a political nerd now. So I watch like Hakeem Jeffries and, you know, Cory Booker and like other town halls of other elected officials. I've never felt the authenticity of what Bernie, like an 82-year-old man,
with
has.
his hair all tousled.
His hair's crazy.
Yeah.
Like this guy is just yelling basically the whole time. But he like asks people point blank, like, what are you going through right now? And you feel it in him that he's also frustrated. You can feel the pain in his voice.
I love that, man.
And you can hear, like, to give people over the mic or to echo some of the stories that he's heard of people getting into crippling debt because they were like diagnosed with cancer, or, you know, having people have to choose between their medications and being able to feed their kids. Like, those are real world scenarios that are happening now. And it's obviously happening to enough people to make people want to generate engagement towards a change candidate that is also out of the same side of his mouth saying some of the most hateful rhetoric. I don't believe the majority of people that voted for him are hateful people. I believe that they're desperate people. And I think that if we keep putting these basically political props as candidates in front of them, saying like, I'm not the other guy, we're, like you said, we're never going to have that wave, that movement.
Put the policies in the bag.
We're never going to put the policies in the bag because we don't have anything to say.
Right.
We don't have anything to offer.
And then we wonder why we lost, why we keep losing.
You know, I mean, I thought it was an incredible feat to come up with like serious immigration reform, and Biden was able to do that in a bipartisan way. He wasn't able to sell it across the country. He wasn't able to do the work to ensure that people understood what that reform meant.
Remember, Trump single-handedly tanked that bill.
Yeah.
He told
people kill it.
Yeah, the Republicans not to vote on it so that he could run on it.
I believe that he's going to piss off so many people that we're going to be able to build that wide net, but we're going to have to give them people something to offer.
We'll see.
But I mean, the other point is, you know, something I wanted to make sure folks leave with here today is like, if these conversations that we're having in a podcast like this inspire you at all, it should inspire you to know that like you have power. You have power if you are a graphic design artist or a photographer or a videographer or if you're just a big mouth who likes to talk about politics, or an environmentalist, you have skills that you can bring to the table and learn how to build a coalition around the thing that you care about. I don't want to sit back and wait for a Democratic candidate or any candidate to come and solve my issues. I want to make those people, I want to recruit those candidates and help run them, or I want to build the cultural shift by hosting events, by doing podcasts, by throwing every opportunity that we have to just catch eyes in this attention economy at the wall and just see what sticks. We can do that together, and I think that you have been an incredible part of that. And I'm just so proud of you for trying to get outside of your comfort zone this year. You had a really challenging year last year, and most people would want to run away from the stress, but I catch you wanting to jump in and go deeper into the story.
I guess that's a tease for another episode. We can do an episode on me having cancer and going through chemo. Because I think that's a topic for a whole other podcast. But no, thank you for having me. I like doing the show from behind the camera, from cutting it together. You've had some good guests on. So I'm happy to be one of the first ones, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here, what other folks you can have on. We have a really great community here in Central Florida that is doing a lot of really great work. And I want people to know about it and to learn about it and to find ways to insert themselves into it. And even if you're not in our community, even if you're not in Central Florida, if you're in another part of the state or another part of the country, like, find those people. They're there. Even if it's like 3 of them, like, they are there. Even if you're out in the middle of nowhere, I guarantee you that there are people out there. And if you're feeling restless, and if you're feeling some kind of doom, get out there, fix it.
Turn it to action.
Yeah. Don't have fucking CNN on repeat, just telling you how horrible everything is. Yeah. Like, turn off the TV, turn off the phone, get out there, talk to people, ask how you can help. If you don't have a skill, I can do camera, podcast, video editing. You don't have to know how to do that. You can, find your thing.
Get outside of your comfort zone, and knock on some doors, or put up a table in the park that says, come talk to me about politics, and just start interviewing random people and listening to what they say. Like, we spend a lot of money to try to figure out through polling what people think, and like, we burn that money for no reason when we turn around and don't speak to their direct issues. So, but I do want to like bring it to a kind of deeper place, because part of us being on this together is unique in the fact that it's a scary moment right now. And it's gonna get scary. I want people to know that, I look at like Anna Eskamani and I see like her sister Ida, and I'm just like, wow, they're a power couple, like politician family. And I just feel like, wow, I could never keep up with that. But I want to have you on more to talk a little bit deeper, because like, it's not all a walk in the park. It's not like a slice of cake every day. It is hard. It's hard on me emotionally, coming home, having to hear deep, painful stories in the community and then vent them out to you. And like, that's very traumatic for both of us to have to deal with. Like, I know after the election, like, I cried because I was grieving like a child that we hadn't even had. Like the ability, like in my head, Trump is game over on the climate crisis. So for me, like, I want people to know that this work is a very human, challenging job. And the people in this movement that inspire me, I want to invite them to this podcast to share their personal why.
Yeah, get to know them.
So that other people can feel like they're like me, and you're not as in this work as like I am or like Anna Eskamani is, but you still suffer the consequences of poor leadership.
Yeah.
And the fear and anxiety, and that's going to be a lot of the people watching stuff like this.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I hope to at least open more doors for people to find their way to doing something about this, because it's going to get really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I've learned and what I know about what Germany went through during Hitler, and what other authoritarian situations have looked like since then, anywhere from like Turkey to North Korea, like there's a lot of there. It's a spectrum, and we don't quite know like where we're at or where we're going to land, but there's enough signs happening now to sort of gauge how it's going to go. But nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. Nobody knows exactly what the future holds, but we have to try everything we can to stop it from getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens at the micro level. That happens in your day-to-day interactions. That happens when you go to the pharmacy and you do small talk with the pharmacist and you look them in the eye and you tell them thank you.
When you don't do self-checkout and you like
right.
go to the people and look them in the eye.
It's the little things. It's that connective tissue that builds our society that these people in power are trying so hard to destroy, to convince you that your neighbors want to kill you, when that's not necessarily the case. I mean, go out there, talk to people, get to know the people in your community, because I guarantee you that you'll be surprised with how feasible it is to just talk when you're not in a comment section of some social media post.
Right. It's like you don't know if you're talking to a bot or AI now. And frankly, I don't think every Republican that voted for Trump wants to kill us. I think a lot of them were spoken to when
lied to. Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing your communications expertise and your background in Hollywood pop culture. You have a podcast. Would you like to plug?
Yeah, we recorded in this room. The camera points in the other direction, so that's fun. We bought a mic, so if you like movies, we're about to go into a new era where we are going to do another career arc. So we covered new movies, but we also cover old movies. So we did Nicolas Cage, we did Robin Williams, and then we did a double Tom Hanks and Cruise series. So that's been the last few years, sort of the post-COVID time is sort of structuring it that way. So now we're letting folks vote on a bracket. So I don't know when this is going out. We're recording this on Sunday, August 24th. So as of tomorrow, the 25th, the voting has started. So you might be listening to this like in the middle of the voting, but it's going to last about a month. And by the time we get to the end, we'll have one new pick chosen by the audience, by listeners.
Well, I think, I ask every single guest, what is their personal thing that helps get them through all of the chaos? Like, what is your favorite song, your favorite artist, your favorite what have you? I'm assuming you're going to say movies are your thing.
I love movies. I love music. We talk about music on the pod. Not as much. It's mostly movies. But when we do our year-end wrap-up, we always do a music episode, a top 10 albums episode. Shout out to Danny, who always joins us for those. And yeah, I mean, TV I love as well. I love comics. I love video games. Right now I'm playing Death Stranding 2 on the PS5, which I love. Great game. Deliver some packages, save the world. Music. Right now I'm really loving Clips. The new Clips album is really, really good. Just
grinding.
Yeah. Clips is back. Pharrell on those beats. Malice and Pusha just going for it. I try to keep up with a lot of new music, but we're about to go see System of a Down next week, so I've been trying to sort of pause my new music consumption to listen to a lot of System.
But I know that pop culture has been a huge important staple in your life, because
it's the lens that I see the world through. You know, when we sit down to watch a show at the end of the night, I'm either thinking, okay, is this something that I'm going to talk about on the podcast, or is this something that is just going to help me wind down, or is this something that's going to help me process like the enormity of life in 2025 America?
Right.
And sometimes, you know, you get surprised, you know, like we've been watching Living Single, the 90s sitcom with Queen Latifah. And that's a show that's just so easy to just put on and just relax. But the more I get drawn to it, the more I appreciate it from like a craftsmanship, like artistic standpoint. And the more I absorb like how beautiful of a time capsule it is of that time. So I'm always like finding ways to just to see the world through media, through art. Don't call it content.
Yeah,
it's not content,
it's art.
But thank you for having me. This is great. I hope to be back.
Thank you. And thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed watching today, thank you so much for joining us. And please like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends. And if you want to come on the podcast, send us a DM. Go to @organizingtovictory or visit us at organizingtovictory.com. Get involved with this movement. We want to hear from you, and we want to bring people on here that will teach us all one more step to justice. Thank you so much. We'll see you at the next one. Bye.